I am thrilled to be here, Miles. This is my ideology of being brought up to the big game. Love what you do. Look, we were talking in the green room a second ago. I'm honestly honored to be a part of today's show, simply because of some of the epic guests. And there's been several people, peers of mine. You've had, Randall Thor 19. You've had Dealer Gaming. You've had a few others on the show, as well as incredible industry icons like Jeffrey Grub and several others like Paris Lilly and Denny Pena. So I'm honored. I'm honored to be here, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. It looks like I did have my mic muted for that intro, but sorry about that, everyone. Rookie move here, but hopefully now you should be able to hear me. Again, if you missed the intro, this is the 40th episode of Xbox Chaturdays, and I am stoked to be joined by Mr. Boomstick XL of Double Barrel Gaming. Again, you are, like I mentioned, when no one could hear me, one of the nicest and most positive members of the gaming community. So I'm stoked to have you on here. You are new to the show, and I know you've
Yes.
been in the community for a long time. A lot of people know who you are, but for the people who don't, give us a quick breakdown of who Mr. Boomstick XL is, where they can find you, and why you love gaming.
Listen, folks, I'm an old dog. I'm going to be 51 next Saturday. And I've been gaming since 78, since my father was incredibly awesome enough to bring home the Atari 2600. I have owned every major game console since then. And you say to yourself, well, how could you do that? A lot of allowances and a lot of saving to make sure that I was able to get and be a part of the gaming conversation. I have a channel. It's relatively new. We're closing in on 10,000 subs, still very small, which is awesome. Um, we're as content creators, Miles. You'll appreciate this. We're always happy with the first sub, and then we're looking for the next 100 subs, and then we get to 1,000, and we're like, wow. And then now, obviously, for me, it's the next one is 10,000. I like to consider myself to be very positive. I don't use FOMO or hate to generate content to push the channel. I do 4 live shows a week. There's a lot of production that goes on between the lines, and obviously, Miles, you know that. And I do it because I just love talking about gaming, but more importantly, I love this community. There are so many amazing people that I have had a chance to not only work with but talk to, and it's just it drives me each and every week to push out the content. So that's me in a nutshell. Double Barrel Gaming. We will be 4 years old come November 3rd. And if you've never seen the channel, please give us a shot and take a listen. It is always positive. It's always fun, and my panels are packed with incredible professionals.
Yeah, I've been on your show. I've had the
Yes,
pleasure of being
sir.
on your show a few times. Always a ton of fun, a lot of great conversations, and yeah, you've been in the game for about 4 years now, which is incredible. Closing in on 10K, which is a huge milestone. I consistently talk about this on Twitter that I'm just always grateful for anyone who wants to come hang out, join in the
Yes.
conversation, and really it's just about talking about video games, which is really cool. And the fact that people show up and listen at any number and any degree is constantly weird to me. So I appreciate everyone. We almost have 100 people joining us already. I see Paris in the chat. I see Mr. Joanna Dark, Astrius Gaming,
Paris.
Poochie. One thing I love about Xbox Chaturdays, and I say this with 100% sincerity, is that generally speaking, this is one of the best podcast chats that I've ever seen. I lurk in a lot of chats like Paris. I hang out. I join in the conversations. There's a lot of great communities, but the curated group of regulars that we have for Xbox Chaturdays is second to none. I'll give
Yes.
yourselves a round of applause because this chat, no matter how many people are here or what the topic is, always stays respectable, always stays
Yes.
fun, and that is a rare treat. And for me, it means the world. So thank you all. We have a great show. We're going to be talking about the NVIDIA GeForce leak, all the juicy details that came out of that. We're going to be talking about some new Xbox Codenames. We're going to be talking about Battlefield Delayed. We're going to be talking about, of course, acquisitions and so much more. But the first topic I want to jump into is one that feels like it happened a month ago, but it was earlier this week, and that was the NVIDIA GeForce Now leak. So basically, a data miner went into the GeForce Now app and pulled juicy details about projects that have been confirmed and a lot that have not been confirmed. So that's what we in the business call a big oopsie. And since all of this broke, NVIDIA has come out and said, yeah, that data is real. But they soften it by saying, some of these they're just speculative titles. So we're just going to say that and leave it there. So what I want to talk about are a few different subcategories of this kind of broad NVIDIA GeForce leak. First up, we had a huge slate of PlayStation exclusive titles listed essentially for PC. Games like God of War, which has been speculated for a while to be coming to PC. So what I want to ask you and what I want to ask the chat here is, do you think that games like God of War are on their way to PC?
I mean, doesn't it seem like it's almost an obvious thing, right? Like all we have to do is look back, excuse me, to how Xbox has been making money on older content. And obviously we know that most of their content is dual release. This is something that we don't see with Sony. I don't think we will ever see this with Sony. Sony has a very old-fashioned, dominant way on the way that they sell their software. They want to sell you their box and the PlayStation, whatever number is attached to it, and it works for them. It works for them very well. This is not a surprise, and folks, I'm this again, not surprising. They're literally leaving millions and millions of dollars on the table by not bringing their IPs to PC. Because listen, the PC master race, as we know, as we call them, they're a fickle bunch. They are a very large number. I mean, even if you turn around and you put Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo fans together, it still doesn't outdo the number of people that play on PC. Some people are a little bullish on wanting to go to home consoles, right? They're just, I'm a PC guy, gal. This is what I do. I have this big setup. It's $5,000. I got 19 screens. I got lights. I got big chairs. This is where I want to game. How do you not appeal to these people by putting some of your greatest content? God of War 2018 Game of the Year for so many, and we just saw Ragnarok a couple of Thursdays ago. God of War is by Cory Barlog and that team over at Sony Santa Monica is a masterpiece. Why not let others play it?
That's an excellent point. We've seen, PlayStation kind of dabble and experiment with these PC releases for Death Stranding, Horizon Zero Dawn, and they are telling their fans slowly but surely that they are open to bringing some of their biggest games and their most important games to the PC audience. They're in this delicate position right now where they have basically structured their business model to cater to the console side. The PlayStation 5 generation, the business model that they had roadmapped out for this was, we are going to sell PS5 consoles. And to sell PS5 consoles, we need to have exclusive games that are only on PS5 consoles. I think they've realized pretty quickly into this generation that they need to soften that approach a little bit because, like you mentioned, they're leaving money on the table. They're excluding a huge audience. What I want to know now, you kind of touched on this. So your stance is that PlayStation will never have day and date PS5, or I'll just say PlayStation releases. Let's say we're going into the future, PS6. Will Sony ever do day and date releases between console and PC?
You know something? If you ask me off the top, I say no. I think Jim Ryan is a traditionalist, right? But he's also a money guy. Like if you know anything about Jim Ryan, and you know about his days before he was the head of Sony, when he was just the head of Europe, folks, he found a way for his marketing to have a 6-to-1 ratio versus PlayStation and Xbox. Like he understands the business. Now we're seeing some big moves recently that are very business-like and not done through the heart, like we saw through Sean Layden, who is one of my favorite PlayStation guys. I mean, I just loved his presence and everything that he did. I was very sad to see him go, but Jim Ryan is very cold. He's very precise. He understands. So To say never would be I wouldn't be comfortable with that, Miles. I would say that we could eventually see day and date releases, and you know what's going to be the I think the real kicker or the pen on paper for Sony is to see how well Microsoft does once they start releasing, the big bangers. When you see Halo, it's and Forza release later this fall, they're going to be watching the numbers. Listen, each one of these companies take a page right out of their book. We've seen Microsoft steal from Sony, Sony steal from Microsoft. It's business. If these titles do really well in the PC space, I think that we might eventually see them take a shot with one of their bigger titles. And I mean, listen, if you told me that Horizon Forbidden West was going to be dual releases, I can almost guarantee you that the number of copies would double.
Yeah, it's one of those things where PlayStation built up this reputation and built up this kind of narrative in their fan base and with their, most passionate fans that our games are exclusive to a console. PlayStation 4 was a runaway success for PlayStation for a lot of reasons. They started
Yeah,
delivering high quality, high caliber games. Their competition was fumbling in some aspects, so they had this rare opportunity to run away and build up this narrative that PlayStation is the best place to play. PlayStation has the best games, and they
indeed.
and they were marketing that going into the PS5, and then quickly they kind of had to backpedal, as we've seen on certain narrative beats, because they are realizing that they have to, in terms of the health of the business, they have to go to where the people are playing. You can't ask the average consumer anymore to completely dedicate their life and their finances to this box and playing on this platform. We're too deep for PlayStation right now. I don't think we're going to see, day and date releases, next year, but I think PlayStation with these acquisitions for PC porting studios is at least preparing for that world. So down the road, you have the PlayStation platform, but the PlayStation platform doesn't necessarily mean the box anymore, because I think they're seeing the success of Xbox, and like you said, I think they're going to be paying attention to these multi-releases, these PC and console releases, and saying, you know, are we really just leaving a bunch of money on the table, or is our approach the proper approach? But with all of those business measures, you can't be reactive on that scale. Shifting course on that degree takes years and years, and PlayStation isn't going to leave themselves in a position where, if they are not having the right approach, that there is no backup plan, or their backup plan takes 4 years. So it's hard to say. I'm in the camp that PlayStation is preparing its fans and preparing the world for day and date releases. I just don't know when those are coming.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't want to say PS6. That's I think too far into the future. I think that we could potentially see this 18, 24 months from now, where it's again it just becomes business sense. You made a great mention, and it completely went over the top of my head about the studio that they just picked up that specifically builds PC builds of games. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that we might not see it today. We might not see it tomorrow. Heck, we might even not even see it in 2022. But they are preparing, I think, the studio for the future. That's a fantastic point.
We get to a couple super chats here. First up, Mr. Joanna Dark says, should Sony make a PC tier of PS Now, which would allow them to bypass Steam and Epic royalties, similar to EA Play or Ubisoft Plus? Thoughts? So Mr. Joanna Dark is asking, should PlayStation make its own PC version of PlayStation Now that is not tied to a Steam release, so that they can get people to sub on PC and play games on PC and soak up all the profits?
You know something? That's a fantastic question, and the super easy answer is I'm not. I have never been sold on PlayStation Now. I think it is a fine service. I would even say that it's a passable service. It's just not for me. See, because Game Pass has me spoiled, right? Like we get $15 a month, and you get day and date releases. PlayStation Now, you get a lot of old stuff. I'm not saying what's there isn't good. What I'm saying is that it wouldn't make any sense if they want to bypass something like a Steam. They would have to make day and date releases they'd have to make their equivalent to Game Pass. I don't see them doing that simply because their model currently is heavily focused on here's this amazing, you know, $300 million game that we made, and we want to sell 100,000 copies. And I think that that remains in place for quite some time. Should they be on PC? Should PS now be on PC? 100%. Again, you're just leaving money on the table of the folks that simply just game on PC. There are those exclusive gamers that were like, yeah, when I was a kid, I had a Super Nintendo, but now I'm this adult. I know how to do all these things, and I'm part of the master race. I don't want to game because the best place for me is on PC because I'm in control of FPS and ray tracing and all the bells and whistles that come with the elitist community. And there is a big one out there and it's untapped for Sony. It's absolutely untapped.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point about PlayStation's current model. As we've seen with the whole upgrade situation, PlayStation wants to make $70 on these games,
Yeah.
and they have finally confirmed that there will be a $10 upgrade path, but they still want and have designed their business model to sell games first and foremost. So PlayStation Now, if you look at what it is fundamentally compared to Xbox Game Pass right now, it's not vastly different. The area that PS Now is struggling is it doesn't have those big day and date releases. A lot of their games have been out for quite some time, and that's not pulling in as many people as they want, I'm sure, because if we're comparing PS Now, which has been around much longer than Game Pass, it has way less subscribers than Game Pass because the value proposition isn't as great, and the messaging of what the service actually is, in my opinion, isn't as great. So I don't know that we'll see day and date with PS Now, but if they really want PS Now to be the competitor to Game Pass, they'll need to do it. But
Yeah,
but the
I agree.
reality is maybe they don't even want to. So yeah, PS Now needs some work. It might even just need a rebrand at this point because, like I mentioned, fundamentally it's not that different than Game Pass, but people don't look at it on the same level at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Space Dovahkiin with the super chat says we are looking at a new Sony. The old Sony is gone. Yeah, Jim Ryan's coming in. He's cleaning shop. He put on that suit and he's got to work and he's saying, you know what, we got to make some money. We're gonna make some money, and I'm gonna do whatever that takes to make some money. We're gonna put out these bangers. The bangers ain't stopping. We're gonna buy exclusives, and we are gonna get you to buy a console, and we are gonna get you to pay $70 for a game with a smile on your face. Let's go. Another part of this NVIDIA GeForce Now leak I want to talk about is there were so many games. The list of games was massive. It was honestly kind of overwhelming to go through all of it and pick out the juicy nuggets. But were there any standout titles to you that you saw on this list and you said, yes, please let this be real. Let's go.
There is one.
There is one.
There is one that I saw on the list. Now there was over 100 games. We saw a lot of Bethesda stuff in there. We saw the confirmation of a Gear 6, which again, Gear 6 is that really a surprise? No.
No,
But I'm
they told
happy.
us. Coalition
Yeah,
told us that it was coming.
yeah. So we know that. But there is one, folks. If you are a fan of the channel, you know I got this game playing in the background at least a few times a week. It's my favorite franchise of last gen, Titanfall 3. Yes. Yes. Look, Respawn and Vince Impella are incredible designers. What they have done since leaving abruptly Activision. Remember that a couple of years ago. He is a leader, and this is why he was put in charge of I believe the new Dice out of California, and his input is obviously very highly regarded within EA. And obviously, we've seen what they did with Star Wars. I mean, that again, another masterpiece, master level craft of the Star Wars universe that I grew up loving and that I still love to this day. But Titanfall 1, listen, I was never a multiplayer kind of a guy except for Halo, and that game launched with a multiplayer only, and I normally will stay away from those types of games. I bought that game, and I have over 1,000 hours. 2 came out, and 2 gave us everything we wanted with the single player. The single player campaign is regarded as one of the best of last gen, and I don't argue that point. The multiplayer was not as good as the first one because there was a lot of like when you picture Titan, you were kind of stuck with the gun, the weapons model where before you can kind of just mix and match. Um, but I mean, to know that they're potentially, and again, a lot of these things. Oh, it's only names on the paper. Listen, if you're telling me that there's hope for Titanfall 3, that's all that I need. All I need is hope.
Hope is a dangerous thing, but I agree. Titanfall 2, like you mentioned, one of the most highly regarded FPS games of last gen, some say of all time. People loved Titanfall 2's campaign, and a lot of people criticized EA for basically putting it out to die, essentially,
Real.
sandwiching it in between one of its own biggest releases and then Call of Duty. So some people say Titanfall 2 never had a chance. If Titanfall 3 comes back, I hope that they give it some space and some room to thrive and be the success that it deserves to be. But yeah, I know we talked a little bit before the show about Titanfall 3, so stoked for you, stoked for all the Titanfall fans. For me, there was one game that had me feeling a certain way, and this is one that's been rumored for quite some time, and that's Dragon's Dogma 2, baby.
Oh,
Dragon's Dogma 1 was such a weird, beautiful experiment from Capcom on 360, and it did not blow up in the way that it should have. When they announced that when they were making a Dragon's Dogma anime last year, I was like, what? Why? It's been so long since Dragon's Dogma released. Why on earth would they be putting out an anime unless they are trying to have a little build of publicity and hype for Dragon's Dogma through the anime for the release of Dragon's Dogma 2. So I heard about Dragon's Dogma in the insider circles a while back, and I was like, all right, let's do it. If this is real, I'm buying it day one, no questions at all. Love Dragon's Dogma. We haven't heard much since. There was this initial kind of, possibility that it was going to be revealed. Some people even thought maybe at E3 this year we would see it. Nothing. E3 came and went, nothing happened. But now, this NVIDIA GeForce leak, like your Titanfall 3, has given me hope once again for Dragon's Dogma 2. And did you play Dragon's Dogma 1?
I did. I
Okay.
I didn't put as much time into it as I would have liked, but I gotta tell you, it was for Capcom a very different type of game during the 360. I loved how you had all these characters that you could make. I loved how you can actually grab onto the actual beast and you're just wailing on it and get knocked away and come back for the fight. I mean, listen, the game was a very large scope, and again for Capcom, who old traditional Japanese company, we get the Resident Evils, we get the Street Fighters, we get a lot of the same things because that's what they're good at. This was an offshoot. Like this one must have been someone's like, hey, I played D&D as a kid, and I want to make a game. That's what it was, and to know that they're making a two that's gonna probably get the next gen treatment and potential of multiplayer is just it's chef's kiss.
That was my one. The entire time I played Dragon's Dogma 1 with the pawn system, with your NPCs kind of jumping on these beasts, you're on its back stabbing it, you got your mage off to the side throwing fireballs. I'm like, why isn't this multiplayer? This would be such an amazing, incredible co-op RPG. And I'm hoping that, with the Dragon's Dogma 2, that they would take that next step. Because the pawn system's cool. You could totally keep that. But I would love the option to be like, hey, I'm going to swap out one of these pawns for my buddy, and we're going to go.
Imagine a 4-player co-op Dragon's Dogma 2. Four people.
I've imagined it. I've had some fantasies about that. So yeah, quick shout out to the almost 200 people rocking with us. If you are new to the show, we do this live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out, and let's see how big we can get this party. I'm going to get to a couple more super chats here. First up, Outbreak Podcast says, here comes the boom. Great to see Mr. Boomstick. Some love for Boom. Love to see that. Mr. Joanna Dark again says, also happy Chatterday. I'm glad to be hanging out with Miles, the GOAT, Dompier, and Mr. Boomstick XL, which I discovered through Miles. Thank you.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
We still have a lot of show to go, so I'm excited. One final bit on this NVIDIA GeForce topic that I want to touch on is some context for context for everything, all the games on this list here. Because as NVIDIA has said specifically, some of these are speculative titles.
Right.
We know realistically some of these are 100% unconfirmed, unannounced titles that will be announced. I have no doubt in my mind that some of these are going to be announced officially. But we've also gotten basically confirmation from developers, and when I say we, I mean Windows Central, that NVIDIA GeForce Now is being used by developers in this kind of remote development world to
Yeah.
test builds for games. So that could be what some of this is. Some of this might not ever come to light. They could just be testing, projects to see if it's viable. So just some context as we go through and touch on the wild speculation, because the wild speculation's fun. It's fun to go down that rabbit hole, think of all the possibilities, but it's important to, have a tether to keep yourself grounded.
Temper expectations, maybe?
Yes. Just pretend that everything you see has a Aaron Greenberg tweet attached to it saying set expectations and your life will be,
And we love ourselves some Aaron Greenberg, honestly.
oh,
Who doesn't?
absolutely. Another part of this data mine that I want to touch on is some new Xbox Codenames. Some new, rumored names for Xbox exclusives that have not been announced yet. Our very own Jez Corden of Windows Central detailed a couple of these in Project Indus and Project Cobalt. So Project Indus, from what we've gathered, is a real-time strategy game that combines elements of turn-based action with, the city building of Civilization. So this is going to be, I would likely imagine, a PC first release, potentially on a dual release. But this is being developed supposedly by Oxide Games. And there are some job listings within Oxide Games that kind of corroborate this information.
Yeah.
Have you read about Project Indus and Project Cobalt? Are you familiar with these code names? Boom.
Yes. When I saw Indus, I thought RTS. Like, just based on the description. I'm not, RTS guy number one. I've played some. One of my favorites on the OG Xbox, Aliens versus Predator. I don't know how many people remember that.
Oh, yeah.
It was so good. Oh my God. I wish that would come back. And that game is worth hundreds on eBay. I actually have a sealed copy, by the way.
Whoa.
Yes, I wound up getting a sealed copy for like $5, and I had the open copy, so it's in storage. So I might be a millionaire. I don't know. But that's one of my favorite. I love. There's some other RTS games that I've played, so I would be interested, but I probably wouldn't be front and center. Now, Cobalt, I did not read about, so I'm not sure what that could be. But listen, should not surprise people. I mean, folks, there were 23 studios and 36 plus teams as of today. I mean, that could change Monday. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But they have and plus we know that Microsoft, they kind of felt a little burnt last gen with kind of trying to work with the third party developers. They got burnt by Platinum. We know how that went down. So they've been a little skittish about going out there and making these deals, but it wouldn't surprise me if they have one and two, because if you remember during the 360 days, they were infamous for that. I mean, all of the second and third party game that were exclusives outside of the first party stuff was just fantastic. So I'd love to see a return to that. So maybe Cobalt is part of that.
Yeah, we've seen this huge push with Xbox Game Studios publishing, as we've seen with Contraband, as we've talked about Project Dragon, we're talking about Project Indus. Xbox has a dedicated team to come up with these partnerships. So it's not as fun as it is to talk about the acquisitions. Realistically, for Xbox, it's not all about acquisitions. They want to leverage these amazing developers in a way that doesn't mean they have to buy them. They want to say, hey, what ideas do you have? Because we want to give you the funding, we want to give you the means to bring this to life. We'll pay for it, but that's going to come with some exclusivity. You're going to have to give that exclusively to us, and I think we're going to see some really big partnerships from Xbox.
I think, Miles, real quick, I think that we've seen Sarah Bond become face forward for
Yes.
Xbox. And she is really a lot responsible for that, and I love her. Every time she's come out on stage to talk about Xbox, you can see the passion, and a lot of these deals have come from her incredible stature in the Xbox ecosystem.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point. She is a big front-facing person for Xbox now, and they are stressing. She's in interviews talking about their approach, talking about
Yeah.
how big and small they're going to partner with developers to make great projects. Death's Door, a fantastic example of an
Oh,
indie game that a lot of people are regarding as game of the year that is an Xbox exclusive. So Xbox is making some big moves to partner with the right teams. Project Cobalt is not a partnership. Project Cobalt is from a studio that is now owned by Xbox Game Studios, and that is In Exile. So
oh,
previously, In Exile has basically confirmed that they are working on a first-person RPG. This
yes.
comes from job listings, some conversations from members of the team. We don't have a ton of details on what that is, but this is under the code name of Project Cobalt, and the small amount of details that we have gathered point to this being a first-person RPG set in a steampunk setting. So big blimps, zeppelins, think BioShock Infinite type of setting. That's all we realistically know about Project Cobalt. But In Exile is a highly regarded development studio. And I want to
Yeah.
know what your take is on this idea of In Exile working on a first-person steampunk RPG.
Well, early in the year, they did make mention that they were working on their next title would use the Unreal Engine 5. Now, that I
Oh,
remember. And if this is that game, why not have the masters of their craft make a new IP? And steampunk, has not really been one of those running themes that's been done to death. Like, we've seen so many, incredible, set pieces. Steampunk, not so much. I would definitely be down for that.
yes, In Exile, they have a long history of making incredible immersive RPGs. So that concept in general is really fascinating. Obviously, we'll have to wait to get more info because realistically, there's not a lot to go on. But with those little nuggets, you can kind of speculate on all the wild possibilities of what that might look like running in Unreal Engine 5 because Unreal Engine 5 is going to be a big game changer for development. We really haven't seen any titles launch so far in Unreal Engine 5. So I think next year we'll start to see some of these, but it's going to be fascinating to have that kind of side by side because I took some time recently to go down the rabbit hole and compare the jump from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4. And that it's pretty staggering to kind of see
Yeah.
the jump in quality, the jump in physics, the jump in all these lighting and little details. So Unreal Engine 5, let's go. That's going to be the true kickoff, I think, of what we consider as next gen. But
Yeah.
I want to transition into the next topic here, which is one that kind of, a lot of people were speculating. Jeff Grubb caused a stock market crash over this one, and I've reported him to the feds. Sorry, Jeff, but your insider trading has to stop right now. But earlier this week, there was a tease from Jeff and others saying, there's more delays coming, and everybody was freaking out. A lot of people jumped to the conclusion that it was Halo. People were like, oh no, not Infinite. They can't delay Halo Infinite. It came out quickly that it wasn't. A lot of people were speculating that it was Battlefield. And sure enough, we got confirmation that Battlefield 2042 has been delayed. Not into 2022, but just by a few weeks to
Right.
November 19th. In regards to the kind of stock market situation, it was really fascinating to look at the graph and see it basically when the rumors pop up of a delay and it being Battlefield to 2022, it spiked straight down in a way that I haven't seen before. And then as soon as they said it was still coming out before Black Friday, it went straight back up. So as long as you hit that Black Friday window, people are good. People are making their money.
Yeah.
People are happy. So what I want to talk about with this is not so much the delay overall, but now this situation where we have the clash of the three FPS Titans
Yep.
in Call of Duty Vanguard, Battlefield 2042, and Halo Infinite. They all release in the same month now. There's a
Yeah.
1 month period where all three of these humongous FPS titles release. And we were just talking about Titanfall 2. We were just talking about, release sandwiching in between big releases is not the best approach. So what I
Right.
want to ask you, Boom, is do you think having all three of these games launch in the same month is going to hurt one of these games?
Well, here's my opinion on that. Let's put the cards on the table. Right? We got Battlefield 2042 making Battlefield is and has been regarded as one of the best military FPS games in the last decade, right? I understand that there are a lot of people that love Call of Duty to pieces, but there's something about Battlefield, at least for me personally, that gets me excited. Um, you know, we know Halo Infinite, right,
Mhm.
is there. We know Call of Duty, which I think I listen. I know there's going to be people that are going to play it, but I think that they took a step back, going back to the 50s. I think that that's an unforced error that they didn't read the tea leaves. We've just got done doing multiple World War One and World War Two with Battlefield. It wasn't as well received as some of the modern ones. That is a fact. That is, the numbers don't lie. And I understand Call of Duty has this, incredible stature, but they can make mistakes too, and I think that they did. Honestly, I think that they, going back to the 50s, when modern is where people want to, live. And I understand that they have the free to play. I understand about that, but it's a mainstay Call of Duty. So is it a mistake for them? I'm not exactly sure. The one that I think gets hurt out of the three potentially is going to be Battlefield. And here is my answer to why that is. This Halo Infinite release is going to be the first time in franchise history that multiplayer is free to play. And everyone that is anyone that has any connection, big or small, to Halo are going to want to try this. And again, my opinion, folks, look at what Microsoft allowed Fortnite to do. Master Chief was brought to that game that sees a significant amount of very younger players say, "Who is the green space dude?" Right? And he's been in there for a while now. This obviously, I'm still banking on he's going to be in Smash Brothers, and I wish that would have happened already. I'm a big Smash Brothers fan. I'm terrible at it, terrible. My nephew actually a couple of weeks ago had to sit with me, and we unlocked every character, and he's 12. So just goes to show you, Tyler, if you're listening, brother, I love you. Thank you for helping me unlock all the characters. So they want to get Master Chief into the mindscape of not the OGs. We're already here. Miles, you're there. Jez Corden and Randall Thor and the rest of us, we're all here for Master Chief. They want to get that new blood, free to play, putting him in, pop culture games like Fortnite sets the stage for new players. The difference, and I think the problem with Battlefield is there two. One, there's no single player content in that. There's a story within the multiplayer that some people are just going to completely move on from. Like I looked at it when I saw that the big whirlwind thing. I thought Cobra Weather Dominator from GI Joe. Like that's what I thought, right? So they don't have the single player aspect to get people in for the story. And like I said, I like multiplayer, but I love single player selfish experiences, right? That's where, because I'm an old school cat. And really, I really am. I like that's why I love Sony's games so much, because I put on a pair of headphones and I go and I get invested. Um, but the paid versus the free, two new games, two very big IPs. One's free and one isn't. And technically, it's not free, but when you consider one is in Game Pass and you can gain entry for $15 or $10 a month versus the 70 plus, I think that they're the ones that are gonna struggle when you talk about the two massive behemoths. I think Call of Duty has its own problems. I just don't know if the 50s era is gonna hurt them the way I think paid versus free to play is gonna hurt Battlefield.
Yes, there are interesting points to look at for all three of these releases. Um, Quick shout out to Master Chief from Fortnite, who's finally getting a spin-off. I'm proud to see his glow up. But you bring an excellent point. Halo, there's been conversations over the relevance of Halo. And when you start to get to, Halo 5, if you've never played Halo, are you really jumping in at Halo 5? So I think the Halo Infinite approach, the naming convention is designed to get new players in. It's less intimidating. The fact that it's going to be ongoing, the fact that you're not necessarily going to have to know everything that happened from Halo to understand this story and enjoy this story. They're doing a lot of things specifically to pull in new players. Like you were talking about with Call of Duty Vanguard, people are not stoked on the World War II setting. People don't necessarily love that. A lot of the consensus on Twitter, at least, and again, this is a vocal minority, as much as we want to believe what is said on Twitter and the people that follow us on Twitter are the end all be all, there's probably a ton of people who are like, yeah, Call of Duty Vanguard, I'm stoked, let's go. But a lot of people are feeling a little burnt out of that setting, and I don't think it's going to pull in a ton of new players with a World War II setting. But Warzone, Call of Duty still has a humongous free-to-play segment that is actually one of the few titles that has actually pulled some market share from Fortnite. Like, they're one of the few big dogs out there in this scene competing with Fortnite in a big way. So they're established. Call of Duty, no matter who you are, you can't ignore how much Call of Duty sells every year. Somehow, regardless of how it's reviewed, regardless of it just completely breaking people's consoles, Call of Duty sells every year more than it sold the last year. And it's kind of annoying for people like me in the space, but that's just the reality. Call of Duty is huge. Battlefield, on the other hand, has been struggling. The last few Battlefield releases have not exploded in the way that they wanted them to. And 2042 is supposed to be a return to form. But in my opinion, where they have fumbled in a huge way is ignoring the shift in the market. We have a Battlefield game that's multiplayer only that's launching for $70. $70 for multiplayer only when, like you mentioned, Halo's free to play. Call of Duty has a free to play option. That is going to be, in my opinion, the most interesting point to see how all three of these play out is, will people just shut up and shell out $70 for Battlefield, knowing that, Call of Duty comes out 2 weeks later, knowing that they can wait basically 2 weeks for Halo? Battlefield is in the middle of these two titans, and I think because of that, Battlefield is in my opinion, the worst position. I'm way more excited about Battlefield than I am for Call of Duty. I am not, lying at all when I say I have zero interest in Call of Duty Vanguard, like none whatsoever. But I understand that people do, and I understand that Call of Duty is a big deal. So Battlefield 2042, I think, of these big titans, is the one that's going to be hurt because of its pricing model and because of where it falls in this release schedule.
Yeah. No, I actually agree. I think you're definitely onto something with that. Being in the middle, being $70. Again, maybe Call of Duty fans don't even look at Vanguard, but I don't think that actually hurts Activision because they're making monster money hand over fist with Warzone, which continues to be a part of the conversation. There are people, gamers like us, that you know will strictly play that game. They don't mind dropping $20 here and there. They don't mind getting the seasons package because they're not spending the $70. And again, when you look at Master Chief, what are they doing? Everything there is new, right? You don't have to be a diehard Halo head to appreciate the story they're going to tell. It's going to be a big story. Again, single player, not for everybody. It's for me, but maybe not for everyone. I'm going to be playing that based on the flighting that I got a chance to be a part of. Was absolutely amazing. I got the old Halo 3 vibe, which got me into it. All I did was I didn't do nothing but play the flighting. It was so good. And next weekend we get the second part with Big Team Battle and Slayer, which I am really stoked for. I sadly, it's my birthday weekend. I don't know how much I'm going to get a chance to play, but I will be playing at least a couple of rounds of Big Team Battle. It's my favorite aspect of Halo. But I agree with you. I think that they didn't, and I say they, I'm talking about Battlefield and their developers, Dice. They may not have read the tea leaves, because if Battlefield 2042 has a single player and they're charging for it, that's not a problem. But if they would have made 2042's multiplayer free to play, they would have immediately been a challenger for both Halo and Warzone. And I think they're going to be left holding the short end of the stick. Again, just my opinion.
I see some people in the chat and bringing up, the Titanfall 2 comparison and how EA has not learned their lessons, and that's
Yep.
what this seems like. I understand delays. Like, COVID is a realistic factor that is affecting development, especially QA, especially bug testing. I have talked to developers about this. I have gotten specific information from developers that says things that took us, we could do 40 tests in a week. Now we can do two to three tests in a week. So things are a lot more complicated when it comes to testing bugs, polishing, and making sure stuff is ready to go. So that's real. That is a real thing. We cannot downplay that at all. So the fact that Battlefield got delayed, it's whatever. Like, at this point, I don't care if a game is delayed, because I just understand like how everything works. But the fact that it's sandwiched in between these two makes me so much less excited for it. Like, honestly, I was excited. I went into the Battlefield 2042 reveal expecting to feel lukewarm on it, expecting to be like, all right, whatever, another Battlefield's here. I've always liked Battlefield. I've never loved Battlefield. What I've seen of Battlefield and the way that they revealed Battlefield, it got me excited. It got me excited to jump in and play. You put a wingsuit. I'm a simple man. You put a wingsuit in the game, I'm gonna play it. It's
You're
that
jumping
simple.
from rooftops, Miles. Who doesn't want to jump from
Yeah.
a rooftop and fly away?
I mean, come on. It looks like a blast. But now that it's coming out 2 weeks before Halo, which of all these three was always going to be the one I played the most, makes me not way more hesitant to spend $70 on it, knowing that in 2 weeks I'm going to drop it like it's hot and just go full in on Halo. So that sucks. That sucks for Battlefield. And again, the $7 price point is going to be a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. I don't think it's going to fail necessarily, but it just sucks, because this legitimately looked like a Battlefield that could come back and be a big return to form for Battlefield fans. Quick shout out to the 250 people joining us for Xbox Chaturdays. Again, if you are new to the show, we do this live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. I'm gonna get to a couple super chats here. Kay Asante, who says, salute to one of the nicest dudes in podcasting, Mr. Boomstick, and great host Miles.
Sir.
Loving the conversation. Hit that like, yes, hit that like button. Space Dovahkeen with another super chat who says, planets are aligning for Halo. Yeah, let's talk about everything that Halo has going for it. First and foremost, a lot of firsts in Halo franchise history. First time ever, Halo multiplayer will be free to play. No matter what the game is, if it's free to play, more people will play it, guaranteed. Number two, this is the first time in Halo history where a Halo game is launched on console and PC day and date. So the player base and potential for Halo Infinite is astronomical, is massive. And I'm really excited to see, like you talked about, new blood jump in and just fall in love with Halo. I told this story on Twitter a couple weeks ago about how I introduced my wife to Halo for the first time, and she played, Halo Combat Evolved. And, when she got into the Warthog for the first time, it just brought a little tear to my eye. That moment that I want a new generation to experience, because Halo is special and Halo is a big deal. And I want it to be the big deal that it should be in my eyes.
I agree. Listen, there have been some learning curves for 343 since taking over for Bungie. There was a subset of people that feel that they'll never be as good as Bungie, and if that's your opinion, I'm not going to argue with it. Halo 4 was graphically an absolute masterpiece. If you remember watching that for the first time, the single player story, which is where I live, was phenomenal. I'm not a big fan of the Prometheans, never have been, to be honest, but I understand the story that they were trying to tell. The multiplayer took a couple of steps back, trying to copy what Call of Duty was doing.
Hmm.
A lot of people didn't dig that. I was one of them. I played so much Halo 3, it's gross to suggest how. And we didn't have how many hours like we can tell you right now. Like I have, X amount of hours in Titanfall, 1,000 whatever, or 40 days in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I actually do. I love that game. Um, but then obviously we had Halo 5. Again, graphically beautiful. Story, for me, I've told this many times on my podcast, went off a cliff. I did not appreciate the story. I didn't beat the game until 3 years after its release. And that is unheard of for me. I've beaten every Halo. But Halo Infinite, yes, it has had its development hells. It's had its trials and tribulations. We've seen heads of the project go out and get replaced, and then they leave after that, leaving a lot of question marks. You go back to 2020's reveal. A lot of people walked away with, "Oh, I'm not happy with it. It doesn't look next
Hmm.
gen enough. We got some pop in." I walked away very excited because the gameplay looked absolutely astounding. Um, and then we got a chance to see the multiplayer, and we got a chance to play the multiplayer, and I was all in after one match. I said, "Holy cow, they recaptured Halo 3." I am super excited. Honestly, Miles, I don't know if anyone from 343 is listening. I would not want to be you. I understand the amount of pressure to deliver on this game must be something that I only felt that kind of pressure when I was doing my old job as a police officer, going to a gun run or something, right? Like the amount of how nervous you're going to be to put this out to the public eye, because the public isn't always so nice.
No, as we've
And
seen.
yeah, it's social media, it's the internet. People are very powerful behind their keyboards, and they would probably normally not say some of the things that they have been unfortunately privy to in their development history of this game. I honestly cannot wait for it to release. I can't wait for it to be a hit. I can't wait for everyone to be talking about both the single player and multiplayer, so they can all kind of just sit back in their chair and be like, "Yeah, man, we did it," and I'm gonna go get a drink because, man, that have a nice beer with a big thick steak is what I need right now. And hopefully that does in fact happen. I'm very excited for Halo. I cannot wait to play, and I honestly cannot wait to see what a free to play model does. And when you talk about free to play and you talk about Xbox Game Pass, now we don't know the specific exact number, but I'm thinking that we're close to at least 30 million subs. That's my guesstimate. Again, no numbers here. It's just my guesstimation, right? You are immediately taking this game that was a pay for game, and you're making half it free to play, and you're taking the single player, which is supposed to be the biggest change in the franchise, and you're saying to the 30 plus million subscribers, "Hey, here's Halo. Even if you've never played it, you can give it a try with no worry that you can immediately delete it off your hard drive." I think that they have positioned themselves, and I say they, Microsoft and 343, to really hit and win big with Halo Infinite.
Yeah, Halo Infinite is in a good position, and it has, everything in place to be a huge hit. And that's for Halo fans, that's what we all want. We all want Halo to
Yeah.
come out and have everyone play Halo, talk about Halo, love Halo, either re-fall in love with Halo or fall in love with Halo for the first time. You you mentioned 343 and the pressure that they have, and they've always had an astronomical amount of pressure. Anytime a new team, a new face comes in and
Yep.
basically carries off where this legacy ended, there's gonna be hesitations, especially if they want to try new things. I always joke about Alice in Chains, the band, when their lead singer died and they took a
Yeah.
hiatus for a long time and they got a new lead singer. People were like, "Don't you dare! You can't replace him. Don't even try." And so they had all these hardcore fans saying, "You can't even do this because it's not what we know. It's not what we want." And so for 343, that's got to be tough. We saw Halo 4 try to be classic Halo. Try to be classic Halo, I think, to a fault. The campaign was good. I liked the campaign. It just didn't really do anything new and exciting. Halo 5, they tried to experiment with the narrative in an interesting way, and that was met with a lot of, criticism. People did not like Halo 5 not having Master Chief for most of it. Like,
Yep.
what? You're going to give me a Halo game and I'm not Master Chief? What in the world is this? So I don't envy 343. There, like you mentioned with the E3 reveal and the criticisms there and the changes of leadership and all these other little details that have been cause for concern. We talk about the firsts ever. I saw somebody in the chat joking that this is going to be the first Halo in history to launch without co-op. So there's a lot of things that are not necessarily ideal in the world of Halo, but there are still a lot more things to be excited about than there aren't.
Yeah, I
Despite
agree.
despite a few feature delays. Again, everyone knows where I stand with co-op. Like Halo for me has always been a co-op game, always will be. So Halo launching without co-op, it's not going to ruin the game. I don't think the game's going to be bad. I just have to live with the fact that I will not be able to enjoy Halo in the way that I want at launch. I've come to terms with that. It is what it is. But that being said, Halo is in a position to do incredibly well, and I want 343 to crush it and have a beautiful holiday break. Take some time off after 6
Yes.
years or whatever and just relax with your family and hopefully not be harassed on Twitter by fans who are mad about X,
Yeah,
Y, and
I
Z.
would love to see a lot of them unplug. Really, just unplug. Right, just unplug from the interwebs. Don't go to Twitter. Just enjoy your holiday. December 8th, it comes out right before the holiday. Just go and enjoy your Christmas, your Kwanzaa, your Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, and enjoy the new year. And know that by the time 2022 comes around, millions of people will have and are still playing a game that you worked on for almost 6 years, and just relish in the moment.
Yes, exactly. Halo's
Exactly.
out. We have a new Halo, and that's something to
Take a breath
celebrate and be
take a
excited.
sigh of relief.
Ah. I'm going to get to a super chat from Harjeet Chani, who brings up a really interesting question here. We talked a little bit about Halo's relevance. Harjeet asks, are Mario and Zelda timeless? We hear how Halo has to become relevant to younger players. Does Nintendo have the formula for being timeless, or do they also appeal only to older players? So I'll start with you. Do you think Mario and Zelda are timeless, and do you think the formula of those games are timeless, or is it same as Halo, where only the old heads play Mario and Zelda?
It's interesting. Nintendo is really in a class all of their own. And I'm not taking away from Sony or Microsoft. Hear me out. Um, when you look at, like, I got my first NES, I was 15. I got it for my birthday, right? And I will always remember coming home with it from Toys R Us to play Mario, and playing it and just being amazed at what I remember playing the old Mario Brothers when it was just one screen in the arcades back in Nathan's. When my parents used to take me, we had a huge Nathan's that had like 200 arcade cabinets in Yonkers, Central Avenue. It's obviously long defunct, but it's one of my biggest childhood memories. And playing that at home with this little control pad, it was just unbelievable. What I think Nintendo has, that the magic that they have, that, not saying that the others don't have, but it's a special kind of Disney-esque magic where parents who play these old games want to introduce these old characters to their children, and now their children are introducing these old school characters to their children, and it's just I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because I remember introducing my wife and I, we don't have kids, but we our nephew Tyler is basically our son, and I remember taking pictures of him holding a controller when he was 6 months. I still have those pictures, and he is the biggest Nintendo fan ever, and that's because I introduced him to this. And I think that it's a constant introduction of these old characters that we cherish as grown adults, that they are learning because we are kind of passing the mantle forward. It's something that I don't see. I mean, there are going to be people that push back and say, "No, boom, wait a second. I introduced Master Chief. You're a perfect example. You said you introduced your wife to Master Chief and it almost made you cry. That's awesome." But there's something with Nintendo. It's that magic. It's that Disney comparison that you can say that when I was a kid, my parents brought me to the Disney World, and now I'm bringing my kids to Disney World, and it just transcends generations. So I think that they have something special. I'm not saying that Master Chief or Kratos doesn't have that, but with Nintendo, it really is a different conversation.
Yeah, anyone who grew up gaming. I remember the very first game I played ever was The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And in hindsight, that's pretty wild because that game still holds up in a huge way and people still regard that as one of the best games ever made. And I didn't know that at the time. There was something about it. I had a small little baby brain. I didn't really understand why I loved it or why it was a big deal. I looked at the world, I looked at these characters, and I just loved it. And as I got older and go back and revisit these games, I can understand mechanically and fundamentally what's so special and why they have this great formula. I remember, playing Donkey Kong Country with my mom, playing Super Mario World with my mom, who was not a gamer. She didn't care about
Awesome.
gaming, but she loved, like, Donkey Kong Country 2 was her favorite game of all time. And that
Wow.
like those memories are really special. And like you talk about with the Disneyland thing, I think that's a beautiful comparison. Is you have this legacy of Nintendo and these characters that you want to introduce, and you want to see people experience it for the first time because you remember how you felt when you experienced it for the first time. Your question about whether it needs to stay relevant, I would argue that Nintendo, while there's obviously nostalgia, and Nintendo obviously caters to nostalgia, panders to it in some ways, they also continue to innovate. Games like Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, they came out after these franchises have existed for over 20 years. And Mario Odyssey, I would say, is the best 3D platformer of all time. Some people would,
Hands down.
that game is a 10 out of 10
Hands down.
masterpiece. Nobody can touch Mario Odyssey. And that is wild for this game that's been around so long, tried so many things to come out and be that fresh, be that innovative. And then Breath of the Wild. I don't necessarily feel this way, but a lot of people feel that Breath of the Wild is probably the best Zelda
I'm
that's
right.
ever.
I'm right here.
Yeah, like,
It's a
for Nintendo to
masterpiece.
do that, like, this late in the game, that is why Nintendo is, relevant. It's
Yeah.
because they continue to innovate. They continue to do new things with these characters. That's not always the case. I look at my beloved Kirby. I love Kirby. Kirby
Poor Kirby.
Kirby is just a nostalgic kind of wash at this point. All the Kirby games have been the same with bright new shiny levels. They don't do anything that exciting or innovative with Kirby. Kirby is just there to feed to the clowns like me who are just going to buy it no matter what. So I get it. Nintendo does do that 100%. But Mario and Zelda specifically, absolutely timeless, while also being completely innovative, in my opinion.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna say something publicly that I probably shouldn't admit. The amount of hours I spent cooking in Zelda Breath of the Wild is it's gross. It's gross because it was so fun. The music that popped up when you made a dish. It's the silliness of it all. I just love what they're doing, and I could not agree with you more. There are a lot of people that will argue that Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 timeless, incredible. But man, there's something about Odyssey.
Mm.
They just and to think this is we haven't seen this in gaming in a very long time. To start the Switch generation, we got Breath of the Wild at launch, and they bookended at the end of the year with Odyssey. I don't necessarily know if we've ever seen anything quite like it, and we know for a fact that they sold more copies of Breath of the Wild than they sold Switches. That's a confirmed fact. And
Uh-huh.
who else but Nintendo can do that?
When you have an over 100% attach rate for a game, it's a
It's
slapper.
madness.
It's no
It is.
If you don't like Nintendo, that's fine. I know a lot of people in the Xbox camp don't, but there is power and there is magic behind Nintendo, and that is absolutely worth celebrating. Um,
Yeah.
when we talk about Mario and, we talk about 3D platformers, a lot of people say, where's Xboxes? Why doesn't Xbox bring back Banjo? I'll say,
Dude,
if they try to bring back Banjo, it better be Odyssey. Like, it better hit on that level. Like, that's what I'm expecting. If you're going to dare bring back this beloved character, it better hit in that way.
listen, I know that there's a huge amount of people that are like, boom, please don't talk about Banjo Kazooie again because my God, why are we still waiting for a new Banjo Kazooie? We missed an entire generation. It's like to me, you got two separate genres. One is violent killing terrorists, and the other one is, hey, I love everyone. Let's collect puzzle pieces. We went an entire generations without a Splinter Cell. Like
Mhm.
I find myself as a gamer trying to really wrap my it's an enigma. And I say the same thing about Banjo Kazooie. I mean, it is a masterpiece icon that deserves the love and care that we know. And listen, I'll be honest with you, this is gonna sound crazy. But if they can't do it, why not partner with Nintendo and let them make it? Like I'm straight up, like I don't even care at this point. I just want to play a Odyssey level love and commitment to the brand, to the IP, to the character, to the story, to the lore for Banjo. And if you can't do it yourself, and you don't want to get like the ukulele folks to make it for you, which I think is it's all ex rare people. I don't know how that deal hasn't happened yet. Give it to Nintendo, make a partnership with them, and do release it on the Switch and on the Xbox. And you know something? I think it's a match made in heaven. It'll never happen. Phil, if you're listening, brother, call me up. I have all the statistics ready to go. Please call me.
Uh,
I'll dress up as Banjo if you want.
well, that is a wild dream. I see that never happening ever in
Never,
in a
never,
million years,
never
but
happened.
it would be wild. And I'll be honest, and this might be kind of blasphemous. People might, hate me for this, but I've never been a huge Banjo fan. I get why people like Banjo, but for me, it's never been one of my favorites. That being said, like, it needs to come back. There are so many Banjo fans. When Banjo was revealed for Smash, there was so much
Dude.
energy and so much excitement, and we got nothing to show for it at this point. And just for the sake of the fan, there's got to be a developer out there who loves Banjo, who can make a Banjo, even if you're not acquiring them, even if they're not in-house. Partner with somebody. Somebody out there has got to want to make a Banjo.
You know how many of those reveal trailers that, they have everyone packed into the room and they're waiting for the announcement of the next Smash character? Listen, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm not going to front. Like, I'll say it live on the air. I'm an emotional kind of a dude. I literally cried, like straight up, like wow, what? And only Nintendo does that. Like, have you seen any of these? I mean, obviously, COVID has kind of just ruined that dream for everyone the last couple of years. But before it, there would be rooms of 50, 60, 70 people, just all gamers, races, creeds, colors, sexual orientation. It didn't matter where you were from. You were there as a gamer, and the uproar and the chants and the excitement. It is just, it's breathtaking. It really is, and that is how. And that was for Banjo Kazooie as a fighter in a game that has nothing to do with Nintendo. I mean, with Xbox. It's the power of that character still exists. And I know that Phil and Matt Booty have talked specifically about him, about KI, a few other of the older IPs. I just think that we're gonna get him. We're gonna get Banjo and Kazooie. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of when, not if.
I agree. I think there's no world where we don't ever get another Banjo. I think Xbox just really wants to make sure that they have the right team to do this. And Space Dovahkiin, shout out for the super chat, says, I think Tim Schafer can make a new fresh Banjo.
Oh
I
my,
I agree. Tim Schafer
yes,
could crush a new Banjo
he
in a huge way.
absolutely could. And who doesn't love Tim?
Tim's a legend, but Tim crushed everyone's hopes of that by saying, he had some joke where he basically said, like, Xbox already has a team that makes Banjo. They're called Rare. Like, that's not what we're doing. So that dream's dead, but
Devastated.
I think the Banjo dream still lives, still has a chance of happening.
Yeah.
I'm I'm going to transition into the next topic with a super chat from my dude, Fonzarelli Gaming, who just says,
Yes.
acquisition season? Question mark. And we got to talk about it. We got to talk about acquisitions. We got to talk about acquisition season. I posted a tweet yesterday that said there are two words that I'm incredibly tired of hearing, and that is acquisition
Yes.
season.
It's
Just a little joke, a little jab at our buddy, a special Nick over at Xbox Era, because the conversations this week regarding acquisitions and the possibility of what could potentially be revealed next week are more ravenous and intense than I have seen in so long.
yeah.
Rumors are exploding. Bethesda level acquisition coming soon. The industry will be changed forever next Monday. So I have some thoughts. I'm not going to go first because mine are probably not as fun. So, Boom, where are you at? Where are you at with acquisition season? Who are your top targets, and what are you anticipating is happening next week?
Okay, well, first, before we get to that, Jay Fonzarelli Gaming. I got to speak on this guy. He is he's a part of RDX, which is Dealers Tuesday evening show. Please, please subscribe to this man's channel. He is one of the most passionate, real human beings I've ever got a chance to sit down and talk to. His channel is small and it's well deserved. Hashtag Boomstick approved. Please stop what you're doing and sub this man. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks for being here, Fonzarelli. We love you, dude, and you just keep doing what you're doing. Getting back to the acquisitions, listen, I'm not going to sit here. I have 2 Xbox shows per week called the Xbox Factor Podcast. And these acquisition talks have been a part of the conversation for a lot. And I have been very bullish in positioning my opinion on where and who they need to go. I've talked about 2K or Take-Two. I've talked about Square Enix. I've talked about Ubisoft, and everybody wants Capcom first party. But I'm going to dig my heels in the sand. And there's one that I want more than anything for a lot of reasons, and I'll break that down. I want WB Games, and here is why. Rocksteady is an incredible developer who has been pigeon-toed into developing the Batman games. If given an opportunity like Microsoft has, we know that they do. They tell their development houses, what do you want to work on? That's how Insomniac got Spider-Man. Sony specifically asked them, what Marvel character do you guys want to bring to life? They Todd Price said, we want Spider-Man, and they did 2018's potential, depending on who you ask, game of the year. It's a mastercraft of a superhero game. If you're able to get and acquire WB Games, there are a couple of real big monster holes in the portfolio of Microsoft that they have, in my opinion, tipped their cap to Sony. The hero genre. There are a lot of people that have been pushed back on me on this and say they don't need their own hero. They have Master Chief. He's a hero. I hear you. I'm not going to argue Master Chief's status quo. But when you are trying to sell your Netflix of gaming service to the casuals or the normies of the world, I had 5 friends who don't even game call me specifically and says, wait a second, Craig, or Boom, Wolverine game for the PlayStation? Everyone was talking about Wolverine. No one was talking about God of War, right? Because the MCU proper is the hottest licensing in the gaming sphere. Whether you're a gamer, whether you love TV, whether you love movies, it is the hottest property. Microsoft doesn't have a hero that someone will see on a banner that says Game Pass and be like, oh, there's a Batman game? There's a Superman game right next to Master Chief? And let's talk Killer Instinct for a second. In an interview that Phil had, he said that him and Matt Booty specifically have talked about Killer Instinct on numerous occasions. They don't have a studio to make that game. Well, we have heard there was a transition between the Twitter Spaces between head of studio for Mortal Kombat, who said, I would drop everything I was doing to make a Mortal Kombat versus Killer Instinct, but it would have to be, this was 2015, it would have to be exclusive. Almost immediately, Phil Spencer responded. I have the tweets. I got the receipts, folks.
God.
Okay. Phil Spencer said, I love that idea. That was 2015. Now, obviously, they weren't talking about buying them back then, and it was probably just banter, being facetious. But if they do acquire Mortal Kombat, just folks, just bear with me for let me paint you a picture. Okay. Game Pass is the greatest service in gaming. There's no questions. I would even dare say that it challenges stuff like Netflix. Just imagine a banner, whether it be virtual, whether it be on the side of a basketball stadium or a highway. If you put Marcus Phoenix and you put Joanna Dark or Master Chief, and in that same advertisement, you put a Batman and you put a Scorpion, people are going to look and say, what the F is Game Pass? And they're going to want to come to your service, and that is how you drive that kind of traffic into it. Again, I'm not a business major. I'm just a knucklehead with a microphone. So I understand that people will be like, nah, boom, you know what you're talking about. Fine, that's fine. But if you're trying to we're here, Miles. The Xbox community, the millions of people that subscribe, we're already here. If you want to grow to your Disney Plus 100 million, you need to put a Mandalorian in the conversation. You got to put a Batman. You got to put a new exclusive Mortal Kombat 12 to the Xbox platform. This is what would drive. So, in my humble opinion, who has no stake in this, I would love it to be WB Games.
You got a lot of people in the chat, feeling the WB energy, feeling your grand speech about the ifs and the whats and how Xbox can succeed. We had a lot of conversations recently about, does Xbox need a superhero character? And, fundamentally, Xbox doesn't need a superhero character to survive. But as you touched on, if Xbox is looking to appeal to this huge wide audience with a service like Xbox Game Pass, for example, you put a figure like Batman in Game Pass and you tell people you can play Game Pass on your phone, you can play Game Pass on your Xbox, you can play Game Pass wherever you are. People look at that and say, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, I haven't really bought into Xbox previously, but I love Batman. And then that person who loves Batman signs up for Game Pass, checks out Master Chief, and like, oh, Master Chief's pretty dope too. And then you have a new longtime fan of the platform. So all on board with you when it comes to superheroes, and WB specifically could add some widespread appeal to the portfolio of Xbox. The boring, logistics of it is that the WB acquisition doesn't get you any of the superhero licenses. You have to deal with all of that nonsense. But that's not hard. I mean, I shouldn't say that's not hard, but that's not impossible. And that's not a hurdle that these companies aren't willing to jump through, as we've seen with PlayStation and Spider-Man. And now, like you said, the energy behind Wolverine, the energy, you put Venom in a trailer, and me, like, I'll be real, like, I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's cool. I didn't really care that much about Spider-Man 1, but when I saw Venom in Spider-Man 2, now I want to go back and play Spider-Man 1 so I can be ready for Spider-Man 2. So there is power to those characters in a big way. Like, no matter who you are, the more avenues you pull in and the more of these iconic characters that you offer, you're going to pull in someone. Someone's going to be like, hey, I haven't bought into this game or this platform before, but you're catering to me. And that makes me excited. So I'm going to check this out. I'll ask the chat as well before I go on my spiel here. But what is everyone's, number one acquisition? Because we see WB, we see Take-Two, we see all these different Ubisoft, we see Square Enix, all these different possibilities for Xbox. And, as soon as an insider, quote unquote, says, Bethesda level, the sky's the limit. Bethesda's huge. I've said this previously, and I'll say this again while we're just having fun talking about wild possibilities. I think Capcom is the get. I think if you were trying to correct your narrative in Japan, you were trying to pull market share from traditionally, PlayStation franchises like Resident Evil, like Street Fighter. Um, Capcom is the get. The
Yeah.
suite of licenses and IPs that you get with Capcom is enormous. Monster Hunter, a gargantuan franchise that's only grown. Street Fighter, one of the most iconic, beloved fighting franchises of all time. Resident Evil, arguably the greatest horror franchise of all time. There is so much weight, not to mention your Devil May Cries, like a lot of games that people regard in a high
What
light.
about bringing back a Dino Crisis or Animusha? Like these are
Yeah.
IPs that we haven't seen in decades, right? Oh man, that's a great pick, dude.
Again, like Dino Crisis was a weird game, and it wasn't
Oh,
the
I
best
loved it.
horror game by any means. But again, like you, I loved it. Like just playing this weird survival horror game where you're shooting a T-Rex. It's weird, and like that's what I love about Game Pass is it opens up more possibilities for those weird games to come back. Because realistically, with Capcom, the reason that they go to Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Monster Hunter every single time is because those are guaranteed hits. Those are
Yep.
guaranteed hits. They're going to make money. There's not a huge risk there. When you gamble on a Dino Crisis, you don't know that everyone's going to be on board with that. You gamble on a Beautiful Joe, you don't know that everyone's going to be on board with that. But you throw Game Pass in the mix, and that opens up some flexibility. So you don't
Yes.
have to be scared about Dino Crisis not selling 10 million copies. You can just put out a banger, weird ass Dino Crisis and move on to the next project. So that's where I'm at. Capcom is the get. In regards to, what is happening right now and what could be happening next week. Um, I'll just say that again, I was the downer ahead of E3 last time because I was like, there was the conversations that Xbox was going to announce five studios at E3. They were going all in. They were acquiring, Crytek. They were acquiring
IO.
Avalanche, IO, all these studios. And I was like, hey, calm down. Maybe don't expect that. Please don't expect that. If you want to like this show happened, no acquisitions whatsoever. I'm kind of in that same boat right now. I'm not expecting any acquisitions right now. The context of an acquisition, talking to people who've been involved with these before, is that they are incredibly complicated. And so even if somebody hears something and that legitimate info somehow gets passed on to somebody else, there's a lot of what ifs in place. And there's a lot of red tape that needs to be, cut and crossed. So these acquisitions, you don't hear about it casually and somebody goes on Twitter and then the next week it's announced. Like that's not how it works ever. So Xbox has told us that they are acquiring things and they are likely going to have some acquisitions to announce at some point in time. But I'm not in the camp that Xbox is going to just casually drop that they're acquiring Take-Two next week. I don't think that's necessarily in the cards. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, so be it. Grand Theft Auto will be an Xbox exclusive. But just to keep expectations in check, I don't think we're going to see any massive megaton banger acquisitions dropping next week. I know that's not fun. I know that's not. I understand going down the rabbit hole. I understand speculating on all the wild possibilities. I get it. I've been there. We do it. It's fun. But the conversations right now are that this is happening 100%. Next week it's happening. It's going to be this, or this. And I don't know where that's coming from. Nobody knows where that's coming from. Talking to Jez, talking to Rand, talking to a lot of figures, in the community, nobody knows where that's coming from. So that makes me feel like it's not coming from anywhere legitimate. I know people have teased certain things and people who have correctly teased things in the past are talking about it, but as lame as it is, sorry guys, I don't think there's anything happening.
I mean, listen, only time is going to tell, right? Monday is going to come and he's going to come in with a monster storm, or it's going to come in with just a drizzle, right? So we'll know. Listen, we know that they are still in the process of adding to Xbox Game Studios. We've heard Satya Nadella specifically say for us, it's easier to just acquire than to build from this ground up. We know that there are several of these. We've heard the rumors. Again, folks, just bear with us. It's rumors that their next acquisition is not going to be studios; that it's going to be a publisher, very very similar to Bethesda to help with the transition. And I think that makes a lot of sense. There are certain companies that have done better than others that people will levy. Well, they should pick up them because they're not doing as well. Capcom, would be one that I'd be very surprised with, not because it's not relevant, because Capcom has been doing so well.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
yeah.
if you now again, if this is 2016 Capcom, where they were on the ropes, where there was talk of potentially filing Chapter 13, right? Remember, we heard that they have been knocking it out of the park since Resident 7 in 2017, and it's been one hit after another, after another, after another. I don't necessarily think they're hurting
Yeah.
and would want to sell. I think that they're turning a profit. If you look at how much money was made from Resident 7, Monster Hunter, Resident 2 remake, Resident 3 remake, and they continue. Resident 8 came out, was critically and financially successful. So they're not one of the companies that are hurting. The WB one, obviously, we know AT&T, is hurting for money, right? And they invested in WB, and they're looking to sell things off. Is it the perfect storm? Does that really do a lot for Microsoft? I know that there's talk of, well, they won't own the license, they're not going to own Batman, but baked into that contract can be the use of the license. We know that's obviously something that would probably be a part of the contract. Hey, listen, we want to buy these studios from you. We want to drop this bag of money off, but we need to figure out a way to work the wording in that we have exclusive use of X amount of characters, X amount of licenses. Mortal Kombat would be, of course, become theirs because they own the IP. They would own the IP, and that would be big. So it's only time is going to tell whether it's going to be Megaton or it's going to be a studio like IO Interactive that has been talk, or Avalanche Studios, which is working on an exclusive game for them. But they are in a position financially as an institution where they are positioned out of both Nintendo and Sony to be the one to look for a big acquisition. So again, it's only time is going to tell.
Yes, of PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, we all know Xbox has the biggest cash flow because they have an entirely separate division dedicated to just bringing in money. So the amount of money that Microsoft, not necessarily Xbox, but Microsoft makes per quarter is staggering.
It
Trillions of
is.
dollars, and it's something we can't really wrap our minds around. So they have the money to do it. It's not a question of like, can they afford it? Because they absolutely can. They are just going to make sure that these deals are, the right fit and add value to Xbox Game Studios. I'm going to get to a quick super chat from Victor Alistine. We touched on this a little bit, but appreciate the support here. It says, problem is WB Games doesn't come with the IPs or licenses. They would have to buy Warner Media to get those IPs, and that's pretty pricey. Yes, I personally, call me old-fashioned, I don't see a world where Xbox buys DC. I don't think that's on the table. I don't think that's something they're interested in, but
Right.
it is not impossible for them to, like you said, partner with these licenses, get licensing agreements. I think what Xbox really wants to ensure with their business model moving forward and their exclusives moving forward is that when they partner with these studios and when they partner with these licenses, that they have it forever.
Yes.
I talked
100%.
about the Sea of Thieves, Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. Pirates of the Caribbean is now interwoven into the lore of Sea of Thieves in a way that forever will impact the story. Like, I don't want to say spoilers for it, but if you play through it, what they set up in that Pirates of the Caribbean DLC fundamentally changes the world of Sea of Thieves. And you can't take that out. Like, that cannot come out of the game without it negatively impacting the overall state of the game. So I imagine, I don't have the documents, but I imagine whatever the licensing deal was says, we have this in our game forever. Like, there's no, because that's always an issue with licenses, is sometimes they get pulled and you have things like that go away. We're seeing with Forza,
Right.
Racing games are always a nightmare. We'll never be able to get away from it because of the car manufacturers. It is what it is. The car manufacturers, the soundtracks in some cases, those licenses end and they can't be renegotiated, so they can't sell them anymore. Xbox does not want exclusive games to be in that situation where they have to pull it. So
I agree.
I imagine if we do see that, it will that'll be baked into the contract in some way. The next topic I want to talk about here a little bit is Xbox Game Studios' kind of trajectory moving forward. I want to talk about Psychonauts 2 and how Psychonauts 2 has been received incredibly well, how Tim Schafer and Double Fine have talked about how the acquisition from Xbox allowed Psychonauts 2 to be this big game, bigger than it was ever going to be. They had the resources to make this game incredible. And then Psychonauts 2 releases, and Psychonauts 2 is in the game of the year conversations for a lot of people. Not only hardcore Xbox fans, but general gaming enthusiasts, general gaming critics are saying Psychonauts 2 is a game of the year contender. We have Arcane, and we have Deathloop. Deathloop right now, another game that is beloved in the conversations as a game of the year contender. Not tied to Xbox Game Studios. Obviously, Xbox owns Arcane now, but the reality is Xbox Game Studios, with the release of Deathloop specifically, had no impact on that. So we can't really give credit to Xbox Game Studios for that title yet. But that being said, a title that is now under the Xbox Game Studios banner put out a game that is a game of the year contender, will be in the game of the year conversations. So boom, my question to you is, moving forward, one, is this what we can expect from Xbox Game Studios? And two, does this put a ton of pressure on Xbox Game Studios teams to deliver with their releases?
You know, it's funny. You're only as good as your last project, right? That's the business world, right? What have you done for me lately?
Yes, exactly.
That is very reminiscent of gaming as a whole. Tim Schafer and Double Fine have crafted what people are considering, and I would be one of them because I'm playing through it now, a modern day masterpiece in writing, in storytelling, in graphics. You pick your best aspect of Psychonauts 2. It's a multi-plat. But what that does, what the success of Tim Schafer and that team has done for Microsoft is cement that if you play this on your PlayStation, on your PC, and you don't own an Xbox, when Psychonauts 3 comes out, you're going to replay it on your PC, or you're going to get an Xbox to play it if you enjoyed part 2, right? The same thing can be said, and I'm playing through Deathloop. Like, I'm doing like the cardinal sin of gaming. I'm playing like Armagami 2. I'm playing through Deathloop. I'm playing through a whole bunch of other games. I hate doing that, but I just don't have enough time to play. So when I can get it, I get in there and I just enjoy the game I'm playing. And you know what? I'll remember the controls when I come back around. Deathloop is another perfect example of a game that is getting tens. It's getting the game of the year conversation for a lot of reasons. This might be Arcane's best work. This gave me Dishonored 1. See, I wasn't a fan so much of Dishonored 2. I don't know why, but I loved Dishonored, and I got a lot of feelings from Deathloop so far. I'm only like 3 hours in. I'm not progressing through the story like everyone else. I kind of like to stay in one area and kind of find all the secrets and open up every safe and, just learn the game. So I'm 3 hours in. I'm still in the second area, and I'm okay with that. What this game does now is Deathloop is going to come out for Xbox Game Pass this time next year, right? They have a year exclusivity. But when the Ultimate Part 2 or sequel is announced, it's going to be Xbox exclusive. Now, if you're a Sony only player, you're going to figure out a way to now get into the Microsoft ecosystem, whether that be on your tablet, your PC, or actually buying a Series X or S. They're going to entice them. If you loved this game, you're going to be enticed into the ecosystem. So they're doing the right thing. There's these multi-plat deals that they let go through, that they honor the contract, because we know Phil's a nice guy of the industry. We everyone loves Phil Spencer. We know that business-wise, it was a smart move to do. Moving forward, I think the success of these games doesn't add pressure, Miles. I think it actually takes off because they're starting to build momentum with the brand, right? It's not just Xbox Game Pass, right? When Avowed comes out, they're going to have Psychonauts and Deathloop and Halo Infinite and Forza and maybe two or three other titles. When Fable comes out, it's going to be mass marketed because it's Fable. We're getting a Fable, right? A next gen Fable that's going to transcend multiple generations, new players, old players. And because of the success of these two games that are multi-plats, I think it's going to build the ultimate momentum for Xbox, that we're going to start seeing that, the same fever pitch that we get when a PlayStation game comes out. I'm almost guaranteeing, Miles, that we're going to see that same fever pitch with Xbox because of what they're building. Sony didn't win the generation overnight. They had to come out with their first party bangers, and they're amazing titles. And Microsoft has so many in development, right? We have Avowed, we have Perfect Dark, we got Motorsport 8, we have Fable. There's just an abundance of classic and new titles that are going to be brought to us in a new way. And I think that because they have so many of them, remember about a year ago, we started hearing that Microsoft wants to release a quote unquote banger every quarter because of the mass studios that they have. They're going to potentially be able to hit on that. Imagine a triple A Microsoft game every quarter in Game Pass. It is something that, as Xbox fans, we have been expecting them to deliver, and I honestly think that they're going to.
I totally agree. I love the way you presented this future of Xbox Game Studios, because the meme has always been from the outside, oh, wait till next E3. Next E3, that's going to be our year. It's like when you're rooting for your favorite football team that always just loses, and you're like, next year we're going to the Super Bowl. We're making it, baby. We're taking it to the top. But now we are seeing the fruits of all this come out. And I'm on the same page with you when it comes to Psychonauts 2 and Deathloop. A lot of people wanted Xbox to be more brutal, buy out these contracts, make them 100% exclusive. But like you mentioned, Psychonauts 2 coming out on PlayStation. People who play on PlayStation see this, love it, and they go, oh, damn, this is an Xbox studio. Like, if you loved Psychonauts 2, I can't imagine you are going to just spitefully skip Psychonauts 3 or whatever's next from Double Fine because it's not on PlayStation. Some people might. I just don't think the average rational person will do that. Same with Deathloop. Deathloop, people are loving it. It is an incredible game, and they're doing amazing things with that. And that shows the power of Arcane as a studio when you give them the right resources to succeed. So yeah, people on PlayStation, they're going to see Deathloop 2. They're going to see something new from Arcane and go, you know what? I got to check this out. Deathloop was amazing. I love Deathloop. I'm going to check it out. So again, for us in the Xbox camp, in the hardcore Xbox scene, we want to flex those exclusives. I get it. Again, it goes back to the sports mentality. You want your team to be the best, have the highest stats, most touchdowns, whatever cliche analogy you want to throw there. But the reality is, Phil Spencer and the team at Xbox are looking big picture, and they want to make sure they are pulling as many people into the Xbox ecosystem as they can. And when you are locking certain things behind, walls, that doesn't open it up to enough players. So yes, moving forward, games from Arcane, games from Bethesda will be exclusive. But these two Game of the Year contenders that are now Xbox Game Studios on PlayStation are going to show PlayStation players that, and I hate this word so much, but the bangers are coming. Xbox has bangers now, all right? Xbox is dropping bangers on the regular, so get excited. Because the reality is, Psychonauts 2, Deathloop, and there's no world where Forza Horizon 5 comes out and is not in the Game of the Year conversations, at least for the sports and racing. That game looks beautiful. Playground Games has proven that they are one of the best developers in the space, and that's why I'm especially excited about the possibilities for Fable. Sure, they've only done car games. Sure, we're not going to be driving around Albion in a Ferrari for the new Fable, but they have proven that they know how to make beautiful, gorgeous games that play well, feel well, and have attention to detail. So the future is bright for Xbox Game Studios. And I think we are finally getting past the narrative of Xbox putting out mid games, mediocre.
Well, they have no games.
Yeah, they have no games, or they're only putting out mediocre Game Pass filler. I think as Game Pass increases and as we get more and more Game of the Year contenders like Hades and Deathloop and Psychonauts 2 and Forza Horizon 5 and all these games that will be in the Game of the Year conversations launching day one in Xbox Game Pass, it's going to be a hard value to ignore. Like, if you like gaming, not even love gaming. I'm not talking about the hardcore who love gaming, appreciate every aspect of it. If you like gaming as a casual observer, you can look at what Xbox is doing and say, "Yeah, I'm on board. Let's go. I'll sign up for Game Pass." Like, even if you're not shelling out the money for a console, your friends are hitting you up. Your friends are telling you about Halo. Your friends are telling you about all these games they're playing. Like, dude, how do you have all the money for this? And I'm like, I'd say Game Pass. And like, what is Game Pass? And
Yeah.
that's where the word of mouth and the value proposition of Xbox as a platform grows. And if they just keep delivering games on this level consistently, there's going to be no way the average person can ignore Xbox as a platform.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Because there was a time, and this might upset some Xbox fans, and I don't mean to. I'm an Xbox fan, but as a hardcore Xbox fan, there was a point in time where I could understand the person who told me that, they do love gaming, but they don't really need an Xbox. Like, they have a Nintendo, they love their Nintendo, they have a PlayStation, they love their PlayStation. But there was a time when I was talking to my friends about where they play and, let's play multiplayer games, and they were like, "Hey, I only have a PlayStation and I have
Yeah.
no interest in an Xbox." And there was a time, realistically, where I was like, "All right, I get it. Like, I understand. Like, this fits you, what you do and how you play more." But now, objectively speaking, as we move into the future, I can't understand the person who loves gaming but has no interest in Xbox anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They have. It took a long time for Phil and the team over at Redmond to turn the ship. A lot of big decisions had to be made, and they've done the right thing by the fan base, both with the box that we play, the platform that we love, and with the ability to buy games or simply play them on a service. And we're only going to see that grow, especially with their first party offerings, which we know, going back to 2018, where I honestly believe that E3 is where the ship started to turn for Phil and that team. And it's been, man, as a content creator who loves the industry, who has a Switch with 70 games, who has over 90 games for his PlayStation, and everything that they've released on the PlayStation 5 so far. But Xbox is the place where I play the most for a lot of reasons. Controller, friends list, live, you name it. To know that they are invested and they are going to be treating me the same way I see Nintendo fans and PlayStation fans are being treated, it's they're pushing up roses, in my opinion.
It feels really good as an
Yeah, it does.
Xbox fan who, went through the Xbox One era and that
Yeah.
saga of Xbox's history. It feels really good to look at Xbox and say that this is the best place to play. And moving forward, this will be the best place to play. And there's no, fanboy kind of nonsense with that. You can look at all of the services, you can look at the platform, you can look at the stable of talented studios, you can look at the partnerships that Xbox has, and you can tell yourself with confidence that Xbox is the best place to play. And that is, for them, an amazing place to be. When you're in a business and people can look at what you're doing and say that, "I love what you're doing," that is a rare, incredible place to be. Because
Yes.
look at EA, look at a lot of other big businesses, Activision. I have been incredibly harsh on Activision of late.
For a lot
And
of
there's
reasons.
a lot of reasons to be harsh. Activision is not a company I love at all. For Xbox to have this position where, generally speaking, I don't think anyone hates you as a as a company for any egregious reasons. That's exciting. Gamers are passionate. Gamers have a lot of reasons to hate you for X, Y, and Z. Xbox is starting to chip away at any reason to hate the platform, and that's an incredible place to be for a business. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
get to a couple super chats here. Drawn TJ says, "What about Embracer Group?" Um, as an acquisition, I assume.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. On paper it sounds good because they own 76 studios, but I don't think that's what Microsoft will be looking for. Like, that's a lot to manage. That is a lot to manage, and it's why. They left Bethesda the way it was. It's a company that's running very well. Obviously, with the leadership over there and Todd Howard, we know that they're not going to do anything wrong, right? We know that that's why they bought the publishing arm of it. That's why they didn't make any big changes. Embrace a Group, like I said, on paper, because of the amount of studios that they own, sounds great, but I just think it's too dense for me as an acquisition. I think, like I said, Capcom would be great because they have their own publishing arm. And I say the same thing for WB. These are smaller entities that I think that would have massive gain. But I definitely appreciate Drawn TJ is going to be a guest this week on Primetime Gaming this Monday. So Drawn
Ooh.
TJ, can't wait to get you on, brother.
Yeah, Embracer Group is fascinating, because, like you mentioned, the sheer quantity of studios that you get. But Xbox has been very vocal about the fact that it's not about just getting a big number of studios. They want to make sure that every team that they get is a good fit, they have a good relationship with. We talked about this last week on Xbox Chaturdays, that there will never be an acquisition in gaming ever that's as perfect as Bethesda was for Xbox. Like,
Yeah.
watching that roundtable, watching these longtime friends, business partners be excited and celebrate this acquisition in a genuine way. I have never seen a more genuine, fun, heartfelt presentation of that caliber ever in business, ever. And I don't think we ever will again. So Bethesda was this lightning in a bottle moment, and it was just a perfect fit. Todd Howard, before they were, a part of Xbox, Todd Howard was calling Phil Spencer to like get advice, get feedback on launches like Fallout 76 and like how to shift the game. And they have that relationship, and that's huge. So Xbox wants stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
hard to imagine that Xbox has that kind of relationship with an Embracer Group. Ubisoft is another one I see people speculating on, and I think realistically Ubisoft is a mess when it comes to their
It is. Yes. Yes.
thousands of staff, messy leadership, a lot.
Lawsuits right now going on. It's a messy. Everyone looking for the head of to step down because of all the sexual misconduct stuff that's been going on. Microsoft is in the good grace of the community. I don't know if you want to spoil the water, if you will, but it's the same thing about Activision. I don't buy any Activision games. I'm not buying Diablo 2 that my wife and I would play because I'm sitting next to my wife, and how can I honestly support a company that has taken a blind look into sexual misconduct? Like, I'm not going to support that company. I'm not buying Battlefield, not because it doesn't have a single player. I would play the multiplayer, but I'm not buying it because I'm going to vote with my wallet. I'm not supporting Activision the same way it's hard to support Ubisoft. I haven't bought anything from them in a while either, and it's because change needs to come. And again, I know we don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I think you're right. I think you're onto something. Ubisoft, their IPs are fantastic. They're
Yes.
iconic. And they would be a great fit for Microsoft. They would be an amazing fit because you'd get a Splinter Cell exclusive finally. And all of these massive IPs would be exclusive to Windows and Xbox. But do you want to spoil all of the goodwill that you have gotten with this community to get involved with a company that is massively in the news for negative things? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation because you, some people look at it as just as the cold hard business. And for me as an individual, somebody who's, very very empathetic about, what goes into development, the human element of game development, I hate that cold calculated business approach. And
Me too.
Xbox has done a fantastic job in my eyes of, pushing diversity, being very vocal about political issues. They got a ton of flack for, posting, myths about COVID on their Xbox Twitter account. People were up in arms. We saw a lot of people fighting about that, as them just like saying like, "Hey, this is where we stand. This is what we believe. We want to, just give you this information." People were up in arms about that, and
Yeah.
people are scared to talk about those certain issues because of where certain people stand. And I appreciate that Xbox has taken a stance. Phil Spencer publicly spoke out when the Activision stuff first broke about, like,
Yes.
we stand for you. This is ridiculous. We don't want to support this. So they are vocal. They're not afraid to be vocal, and I respect that because
Yeah.
as a business, it can be scary to be vocal because saying one thing might alienate a potential customer. So
Well, this is a cancel culture, so it's a fine line to walk. Whether you're a billion-dollar company or a small content creator like myself, you got to be careful. You can't, jump to one side or another. Sometimes it is scary to speak your mind. I listen. My work is what you get. What you see is what you get with me. There's no fakeness to it. If I feel strong about a specific situation like the Activision one, I will get out there and I will stand in front of it and I will stand by my comment saying that no, I'm not gonna accept this. They're not getting my dollar. And if you're a fan and you unsubscribe because hey, boom, he's ridiculous with this, and I would rather lose 1,000 subs than go back on my principles that I hold. Like I'm an integrity guy. Like that is where my heart is. That is where my soul is, and it's got to be integrity. It's got to be honor. It's got to be you got to stand for what's right and go up against what's wrong. And I did it my own way, and if I lost subs for it, Miles, then so be it.
I respect that. I appreciate that. I'm in the same camp. I've publicly talked about how Diablo 2 is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. One of the best RPGs ever made. I had every intention of buying that game, playing that game on day one. As it currently stands, I am not touching that game. I am
Yeah,
not buying
me
that
too.
game. I am not supporting this game. Windows Central, we made a decision as a website to continue to cover Activision Blizzard, but we have a link at the bottom of every single article that says, just so you know, we have covered Activision Blizzard games. Activision Blizzard is currently in a lawsuit for sexual misconduct. We have a link breaking down all of the details for these allegations and this lawsuit and every single article that we write talking about Activision, because, it's up to the person to make that decision. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. I've made my decision. I have the information there if you're curious to read it. Because yes, I agree. Activision doesn't get to use a corporate shield anymore. The overlords at Activision basically are hiding behind the brand, and no one is taking personal accountability until it affects profits. And
Yes.
Activision Blizzard has been making money hand over fist for years and years and years. So that's why, despite the fact that they knew about these egregious things, they were not making changes. We'll see how this lawsuit plays out, if it makes any sort of changes. They can't legally comment on anything, so we're not expecting any sort of updates. We've reached out to them, and they've basically told us we're not talking about this at all, ever, until this lawsuit's resolved. So they obviously are in damage control mode, trying to protect whatever assets they can and they're not going to publicly apologize. They've acknowledged, they're individuals and they look out for their employees and blah, blah, blah. But I don't buy it. And until I see change, until I hear people within Activision and Blizzard, promote this change, celebrate this change, I am not going to support that business because
Yeah, sorry to bring this up. I mean, we went down. We made a right at Albuquerque for sure. But
hey,
I'm happy to talk about this with you. I think it's important that people understand our stance on it, and I am proud to stand with you on it,
yeah.
Miles.
So I appreciate everyone's opinions in the chat. Again, this chat's great about being nuanced, and we're able to have these harder conversations without it getting ugly, because at the end of the day, for me, I genuinely do care about the people who make the games, and I
Me too.
I know who's getting the money in Activision. We know Bobby Kotick is getting so much more money than any single developer, and it's easy
Gross.
for Activision to throw away a developer, throw away an employee um, who doesn't fit in with this disgusting culture, and just move on to the next, you know, realistically young person who loves video games, wants to create video games, and gets chewed up and exploited by the system. So yes, we'll stop there. We'll transition out of that. But yes, Activision, I have issues with, and I don't have issues with Xbox. So good job, Xbox. Love you. Keep it up. A super chat from Space Dova Keen, who says, "Man, so many bangers! Fire, fire, fire!" Yes, Xbox has bangers on the horizon. You love to see it. It's a good time to be an Xbox fan. Again, like that's kind of the final main theme of this show today, is that the future of Xbox is bright. And we don't have to use hyperbole. We don't have to say PlayStation sucks. We don't have to say Nintendo sucks. We can just look at Xbox and go, yo, Xbox is killing it, dude. And you can hit up your friend who loves Nintendo, who prefers Nintendo. You can hit up your friend who prefers PlayStation, and you say, bro, you need to get in on this. You got to jump in and play this. And now they can look at that and say, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. I didn't have an Xbox before. I didn't care about Xbox before, but you sold me. Let's play Xbox together. You jump in Halo big team battles, and you just have the time of your life.
Yeah, I like that.
So boom, as we are coming to the close of this show here, I want to give a huge shout out to the 280 people still hanging with us. I see Colt Eastwood,
Yes, Colt, what's up,
Donnie,
brother?
Harjeet, so many amazing people in this chat. You guys are incredible. Show's always a blast. But one more time for all these lovely folks, where can they get a hold of you? Where can they harass you about your WB takes?
Listen, super easy. On Twitter at Mr Boomstick XL. The DMs are open. I speak to tons and tons of people. I'm always willing to have a conversation. I say this on my shows. I'll say it on yours. If you are someone that has always dreamed of being on a podcast and you have a mic and you have a half decent PC, hit me up in the DM. Let's see if we can get you on. I started my forte, if you will, into podcasting by simply asking Mooch if I could be on Crossfire. I was on 1 or 2 episodes, and then somehow or another, I wooed him and the panel to be a regular. And then 2 years later, I kind of left to do my own thing, and now I have my own network of shows. And it just if you that person and you want to reach out to me, we will make it happen. I'm always I think it's super important to be inclusive rather than exclusive. I don't. I love the inclusive nature of the community, and I want to bring new voices to this community. And if I can do that, and I can help you, it'll be my pleasure and honor to do so. Please check out Double Barrel Gaming if you enjoyed anything I talked about today with Miles. Double Barrel Gaming on YouTube, 4 live shows per week, and all positive content. So thanks for having me, Miles. This was awesome.
Boom. I genuinely love you as a figure in this community. You're
Thank you.
so upbeat, so positive, and like you mentioned, you do an amazing job of lifting other people up, and that's huge, and that means so much to so many people. So I'm super grateful that you took some time to hang out with me, hang out with the chat today, because yeah, you're an awesome figure that I've looked up to when I was on the outside
Thank you,
of
sir. That's very
the
kind.
gaming sphere. So it's amazing to have you on. I'm gonna get to one super chat here from Drawn TJ, who says, everyone hit the like button for Miles. Great show. Love Call of Duty. I got the new Call of Duty. It's like World at War, but I agree. I think it's not okay to let what's going on at Activision. So yeah, it's like I said, I'm not going to tell people how to spend their money.
Right.
Like it's at the end of the day, it's your decision. I can't tell you how to make your decision, but I just want more people to know what the reality is. I saw you, Donnie, bring up an excellent point about this situation, is that a lot of people like us on Twitter and in the space, we know about what's going on. We know about everything that's happening with the lawsuit, all of the disgusting, horrific cases that have happened within this company, and the casual person who's not on Twitter. Because again, Twitter's not the majority. We want it to be. It's
minority.
Twitter is a very, very small percentage of the gaming sphere. So there's a ton of people who love Call of Duty and have no idea any of this is going on. So my advice is, if you have friends who love Call of Duty, who are excited about Call of Duty, and you feel passionate about this, just let them know what's going on. It doesn't have to be hostile, but let them know what the reality of Activision is.
Can I just make a correction? For some reason, what was wrong with me? I was in the moment, I suppose. I said I wasn't buying Battlefield, and I somehow roped in EA into Activision. What I meant to say was I'm not buying Call of Duty. I'm buying Battlefield because I like Battlefield. EA has had their own problems, but so far they've been better. So that was on me. What was wrong with me? Like, how do you mix up Battlefield and Call of Duty? But yes, it was what I really meant to say. The start of that conversation was that yes, I will not be buying anything from Activision that includes Call of Duty, that includes Diablo 2, the remake, which looks great, or Diablo 4 for that matter, until, like Miles and I think agreed, until there's full-facing change that comes to the company, and then I will then continue my support. But until that happens, I will not. So yeah, it wasn't Battlefield that I was throwing under the bus. It was actually Call of Duty. What a boob move, man! I don't know.
Brain farts. It happens. We're talking a mile a minute. Something comes out. It's not quite what we mean, but I think everyone understood. But yes, Activision. Just tell people what's going on. That's all I can ask, and make your own decision. I'm not asking you to hold torches outside of Activision HQ, but it is important that we understand what's going on and we listen to the people sharing their stories, because nobody wants to talk about a lot of those things, is the reality.
Right.
And realistically, most people don't. Most people suffer through that in silence and never talk about it ever. So don't attack, don't downplay the importance of people coming out and telling these stories, because they suck to hear, but it sucks more to live with that as your profession, as a person who loves gaming, decided they want to dedicate their entire life, their career, most of their time to gaming, and then to go to this company thinking that you made it. Like you're working for Activision, you're at the pinnacle, you made it in the gaming industry, and then to have that experience be one of the most horrific experiences of your entire life, that has got to be an awful feeling, and I can only imagine.
100%.
So on that bright and cheery note, this has been episode 40 of Xbox Chaturdays. Thanks so much for hanging out, everyone, and we will catch you all next week. Take care.
Take care, everybody.